there's been a lot of lists that have been thrown out throughout the offseason. Like you see the NHL and Sportsnet and TSN and, all these rankings. Who's the best player in the game? Who's the best centerman? Who's the best right winger? Who's the best defenseman? And then they gave all these top 10 lists, top 5 lists,
Yeah.
people throwing out era adjusted stats and all that. So I think we can all agree at this point, especially after the season he just had, that Connor McDavid is the best player in the world.
Yep.
Right, Lepore?
He's got the belt.
He's the best player in the world. Now, moving forward, okay, because Connor McDavid has had a hell of a career from a statistical standpoint through his first 7 years in the league. He hasn't won anything in terms of Stanley Cups. He's won some Hart trophies and some Art Rosses, and we all know what he's done just in terms of pure point production. But moving forward, Lepore, let's compare him to Sidney Crosby, okay? Do you think that at the end of his career, Connor McDavid, do you think he will have a better career than Sidney Crosby?
If I'm being perfectly honest, the first answer that pops in my head is no. And Connor McDavid is an absolutely unbelievable player, a once-in-a-lifetime talent. I love watching him. And call me a homer and call me biased because I just love Sid. But there's something about Crosby, and especially looking back, Crosby in his prime, and when the Penguins were winning cups, I hate to be all cheesy and say like, oh, he had like that X factor or that winning mentality, but he did. And the best analogy, or a very good analogy, is if aliens were invading and we had to beat them at hockey and we could put a team together with any players we wanted, who would be the first player we pick? If someone said to me, Sidney Crosby in their prime or Connor McDavid in their prime, I would take Sid. Now, I think McDavid's going to be he's probably going to put up more points than Crosby in his career because he's just a stats machine. And I say that as a compliment. The guy's incredible. But there's that weird thing with Sid that he does a lot of things right. And I heard someone talking about Crosby once, and they said that the misperception with Sid is that they think a lot of people see him kind of like a McDavid. Like he's just like super talented, phenom, whatever. And the guy argued that that was incorrect. He was saying that Crosby is actually the best grinder in the league. He's like, if you watch him in the corners, watch him with his feet, watch how he uses his body. That's what he's incredible at. Oh, and he just also happens to be the most talented player in the league. He has the best vision in the league. So it's for those factors that I think when we're done here, we're going to look back and think Sid had the better career. And if we're being black and white about it, let's be honest, it's going to be about hardware. It's going to be about Stanley Cups. I mean, it's tough to win cups. It really is. Like the timing has to be right. The team has to be right. You have to be lucky. So as far as McDavid goes, I mean, if we had to put an over-under on how many Stanley Cups he's going to win on his career, and he's got a lot of time. Like I'm saying, totally positive. If someone told me McDavid retires with 5 cups, I'd be like, oh, okay, I can totally see it. But if someone gave me an over-under right now of 3 Stanley Cups and 2 Conn Smythes, I'd probably bet no. That he's not going to get there. And people are going to point to like Art Ross trophies, Hart trophies, and Sid lost out on a few of those because of his injuries for what they thought were the concussion problems. But I'd go Sid, man. I don't know. And again, that's not me even necessarily saying that, oh, I think he's a way better player. I just think looking back when they're building like the Mount Rushmore, as they say, where it's like, Gretzky, Lemieux, Howe, or and like if a 4th guy can get in there. I think when it comes to inserting someone, it's about championships. It's about Conn Smythe trophies. So I think at the end of the day, I didn't even throw little things in. Like I always say with athletes, the best athletes seem to have like a moment, like a single moment that you look back on and you were like, of course that happened.
Like the golden goal.
The goal, I was going to say, so the golden goal for Sid, Babe Ruth calling his shot, Michael Jordan hitting the winning shot against Utah, or the flu game, or you could have a 1-hour podcast talking about incredible moments by Michael Jordan. It's things like that. So Sid has the golden goal. And that this is more, I'm going to the objective side as to like how we judge these guys. Like Gretzky and Lemieux had 87 Canada Cup, Gretzky and Lemieux. Gretzky had game 7 against Toronto when he scored the hat trick, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go
McDavid
Sid.
hasn't had that moment yet.
No, and he might. I mean, again,
Yeah, it
like
could come.
It could come. It's a total discussion, and he got robbed of an Olympics because of COVID. So we could have told that story of how McDavid completely dominated in Olympic games, and he probably would have because he's the best player in the world by far. But as it stands right now, he's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the debate goes, versus Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, like in terms of pure talent and even just like aesthetically, just like how they play the game and how honestly just how like beautiful they both play the game, like you could argue that McDavid is better in that respect.
Yeah,
That
more
he's just
modern.
more talented, more explosive, the way he moves out there, it's almost unlike anything we've ever seen before. Like essentially the greatest skater, the greatest skater with the puck that maybe we've ever seen in the history of the sport. And he has all the stats to back it up. The guy's won, I believe, what, 2 MVPs? I'm not sure how many Art Rosses McDavid has won, but he's won a few of those as well.
Yeah.
And one thing that people forget about Sidney Crosby, okay, so I'm just looking at his trophy cabinet right now. Obviously, he has the 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Conn Smythe trophies. He's won a Hart Trophy, Lester B. Pearson, which is now the Ted Lindsay Award, I should say.
He's only got 1 Hart.
I believe he only actually, sorry, he has 2 Harts.
Lepore. I was gonna say I thought it was 2. Even then, 2 for Sid.
Yeah, I know. Man. 2 Hart. Like if you were to ask someone like off the street, right on the street, like how many Hart trophies does Sidney Crosby have right now?
5.
I think they'd all say, yeah, exactly, like 4 or 5.
He probably
Sidney Crosby.
Just bad timing in terms of like regular season. Like those years Ovechkin was scoring like 50, 60 goals. He's kind of like, oh, you got to give it. Like even right now, this year is an example with Matthews. I think most people would agree that McDavid is a better player than Austin Matthews, but man, he scored 60 goals. You got to give him the Hart. Like it's just how it goes.
Exactly. Just one of those seasons, right? Even going through Crosby's career, like from 2010 to 2013, he played 41 games, 22 games, and 36 games.
Ouch.
He missed a boatload of games over those 3 years, essentially right in the middle of his prime, like right after Pittsburgh won that first Stanley Cup. But one thing I was going to say about Sid that people forget, this guy's won 2 Rocket Richard trophies.
Yep.
2 Rocket Richard trophies, because we all view Crosby and, you know, we view McDavid in the same light as a playmaker first. They make the players around them better. Connor McDavid hasn't won a Rocket Richard yet. Sid, that first Rocket he won, he had 51 goals back in 09-10. And then the second Rocket he won actually came in 2016-2017. Nice. When he scored 44 goals. That must have been a down year for goal scoring. But it just shows like Sidney Crosby's the total package, whether it's making players around him better, whether it's scoring goals, whether it's winning championships, whether it's doing the little things like grinding in the corners, how you said, Lepore, like there's people who view this guy as, you know, like the best grinder in NHL history, which is crazy to say about a guy like Crosby, but it's true. So I'm right there with you, man. If I had to pick who is going to have the better career when it's all said and done, based on entire body of work, accolades, all that stuff, it is Sidney Crosby at this point. I'd still go with Sid over Connor McDavid.
2 Olympic gold medals. 2 again. Like I say, how it's all about the hardware. It's like Sid. I think actually the only thing he'd be missing is if he did have like 5 Hart trophies. He got robbed of that one at least. The year he was injured at the Winter Classic, because I think he had at the time he had a crazy lead in the scoring race. It was something like he had like a 30-point lead in the scoring race. He was getting out of hand, and if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, but I think he may have still, even after all the games he missed, he was near the top in assists. He was either at the top or a few down, even after missing as many games as he did. Like he had an unbelievable year, and a lot of people think too that year the Penguins got robbed of the cup. Because like they were winning games, they looked really good. Sid looked unstoppable. So it's weird because Sid accomplished so much, but we still can look back and say, what if?
Like, 100%. That's the most astonishing thing to me about Crosby's career, how it basically had these 2 parts. Like he comes into the league as an absolute phenom, superstar, wins a Stanley Cup pretty early. When did they? I believe they won it in was it 09?
It was 09. Lost in the finals in 08. And
Yeah.
won it in 09.
So it was the 08-09 season, and he was like 21 at the time. And then Lepore, like immediately after that, he went through all those injuries, like right in his prime. Like think about like Matthews and McDavid, 24, 25 years old. They've been dominating the league for the last 3-4 years. Like that sweet spot when you're from like 23 to 27 is kind of that new prime, right? And Crosby was essentially like robbed of that. Like imagine he had stayed healthy through those years. And then he comes out of that on the other side and has like this second act to his career where he wins 2 more Stanley Cups, wins all these other awards. Like it's amazing, honestly, to look back on Sid's career and think like, oh my God, if this dude stayed healthy, what could have been?
Makes you wonder too, right? Again, I talk about how like hardware, but there's also the thing of like the all-time lists. Had he stayed healthy and played those games, and if we're being fair, when he came back, I mean, you don't come back at 100. It takes some time to get used to the game again, get your eyes back and your feet back for that matter. Where would he be like on the all-time scoring list? Or where would he finish on the all-time scoring list in his career? He'd be near the top. He'd probably retire like top 5 or something had he stayed healthy. And to be fair, like that's an argument against people say, oh, who is the greatest player? I mean, health is part of it.
100%.
Like part of it's luck, but at the same time, I mean, that's sort of an achievement to stay healthy. But it's Sid, man. Sid's my boy. That's the hill I'm dying
we're both
on.
going with Sid.
It would take a lot, man. It would take a lot for me to put someone above Sid. Like Gretzky's like the all-timer for me, and there will never be one greater than Gretzky. And then I'd say Sid's probably my second favorite player ever. It would take a lot. It would take like Matthews back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies with the Leafs or something to put up the discussion, because I just love the way Sid plays. And
you said it, man. Even though like he's at this point, he's obviously not the same player he used to be. He's still a damn good player. But you could still argue that Sidney Crosby is like a top 10 to 15 player in the league, like no questions asked.
I think he was still over a point a game last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. Last year, Crosby had 84 points in 69 games.
Yeah. So I remember some kids, funny, I was in my nephew's locker room and some kid, he's like, oh, Crosby's washed up. I quickly looked up the stats and I'm like, but he scored like 80 something points in 60 something games.
He was on like a 100-point pace last season.
Yeah, like low key, an incredible season.
Yeah, so he's still an awesome player, but I'm right there with you, Lepore. Like it's going to take a lot. And can McDavid catch him at some point? It's definitely possible. McDavid's entering year 8 this upcoming season.
Already crazy, eh?
He has a long runway to go if we think he's going to play, close to 20 years in the league. So we'll see what happens.